Good afternoon, and thanks for stopping by Across the Fence. I'm Keith Silva. As we inch closer to spring, many of us will have to start cleaning and reorganizing. In my case, it's the garage, and maybe the basement. For you, perhaps it's those boxes of paperwork you've stored away in an attic or in a corner of your basement. But what if you had to organize half a century of paperwork, boxes, and who knows what else from a nearly 50-year career in the United States Senate? Well, there aren't too many senators for whom that benchmark applies, but Vermont Senator Patrick Leahy is one of them when it comes to career longevity. Shortly after Senator Leahy's retirement from the Senate in 2023, UVM Congressional Papers archivists began organizing his robust collection and preparing it for researchers to access, and now it's time for that part of the collection, at least part of it, to become available to researchers and the general public. Joining me to talk about this monumental task of Leahy's archive is Donnis. She's a Congressional Papers archivist with the University of Vermont Library's Silver Special Collections Library. Thanks for joining us today, Erica.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be with you.
Great. So help viewers understand how much stuff. We've got some of the things sorted here. We're going to show viewers in a minute some very, very limited parts of the collection, but sort of starts here, right? This big box at the end of the table.
Yeah, so it's a massive collection. We received almost 3,000 boxes like this. That's more than 4 tractor trailer loads of material.
And we got a couple of pictures to show there to get the sense of just how big that is and what it looks like coming up. There's the boxes there on pallets and tractor trailers that are being unloaded. You're not alone in this endeavor. You're not just doing this all by yourself. Talk about some of the colleagues you're working with and the funder.
Yeah, so I'm one of 3 Congressional Papers archivists who were hired for this project. So I'm joined by my colleagues Sheer Bach and Sally Blanchard O'Brien. And I'm so grateful to be working alongside them because, as you can imagine, this collection is huge. And we are fortunate enough to have grant funding from the United States Senate. We have a $2.5 million preservation partnership grant to fund us for 5 years to work on the collection. So this is a bipartisan grant program that's funding several different collections across the country right now, including Senator Dianne Feinstein's papers at Stanford University and also Senator Richard Shelby's papers at the University of Alabama.
I don't even know how you begin to organize something this big when it's coming in on tractor trailers. So how do you start?
Great question. Yeah. With a lot of planning, for sure.
I bet.
So we were fortunate enough that Senator Leahy had staff archivists that he had working with him in his Washington, D.C. office for quite a few years before the collection arrived on UVM's doorstep. So we're so grateful. They definitely laid the groundwork for us, did a lot of the preparatory work, started the inventory process. So once the collection arrived here at UVM, we spent a lot of time doing some sampling, doing some surveying of material in the collection. As you can imagine, we can't necessarily look at every single piece of paper in almost 3,000 boxes. We developed kind of an organizational framework for the collection that's based on the topics that materials fall into, as well as the roles of all of the staffers that worked for the senator. So this collection encompasses not only materials that the senator created or had his own hands on, but also the work of all of the staff who worked for him. So our running list of staffers is over 1,300 people at this point over the course of that 48-year career. So that's everybody from interns all the way up to chiefs of staff working for the senator in his Washington, D.C. headquarters, as well as offices in Burlington and Montpelier here in Vermont, and additionally some of his committee staffers that worked for him in D.C. as well.
Interns, you're archiving, something an intern may have done. Some intern is in, this collection.
Yeah.
They may have worked there for 6 months, but wrote a very important memo to the senator, and there it is.
So the senator, during his 48-year career, campaigned for office 8 times. So we have materials like voter analysis, opposition research, promotional items from all of those different campaigns, as well as the planning documents that were kept by his campaign staffers. So he had a separate campaign office, of course, for each one of those campaigns.
For each of those 8 campaigns.
Exactly.
You've got stuff like people would expect, bumper stickers. There it says Leahy for Senate, but What do we have for buttons there? So these are all campaign buttons.
Yeah, so we have some great campaign buttons that represent Leahy's own promotional materials, as well as buttons that he collected, his staff collected on his opponents as well.
I'll hold this one for you, and you can bring the other one up there.
Sounds great.
Yep.
So that first group that we showed on the screen has the earlier years from 1974 through the 1980s, and then this second batch here shows you the 1990s through close to the end. His last campaign for office was in 2016.
And we've got some, just more than Leahy, there's a Fred button, and Bernie gets in there, so that just, we're in the senators, he had those, so they go into the collection.
They go into the collection, yeah.
They go into the collection. Well, really cool. There is something that we were getting this program together, you said you brought, and I was like thinking to myself as reorganizing or cleaning up the attic or basement, this would have got chucked. I would have tossed this away, but when I saw it, when you brought it in, I said, oh, okay, I could see why you're going to hold on to this. First of all, what is it? Not everyone may know what this is.
Yeah, so this is a specially branded landline phone cord that says Leahy 92. So it was produced for the Senator's 1992 campaign. And I'm imagining volunteers sitting in a phone bank calling voters using a landline phone with this cord attached to it.
This very fancy cord that says Leahy and has a little star pattern and is red, white, and blue. People who are going to use this aren't necessarily the general public. These are researchers, these are writers researching this time, researching the senator. That's who this collection is really for, right? It's not like someone can come in and say, I want to see those, campaign buttons.
Actually, this collection, the parts that are available now, are free and open for anyone to access. So that's UVM students, that's historians, that's researchers from around the globe, that's anybody. Vermonters may find a lot of the material of interest as well.
Right. And so they can go online. At the end of the program, we're going to have a link to that so folks can come on, or they can just Google UVM Library Special Collections and they will track you down. There was some things, we were speaking of interns earlier, but you had a UVM student, an intern who was working for you, who discovered some of their own history while helping you with the archive. Tell me about that. Tell me that story.
Yeah, so we're lucky enough to have grant funding to bring on more than 50 interns over the course of our project, and it's really great. It's a win-win situation. They do critical support for us, and they also learn some hands-on skills and try out some things that they may put to use if they go on to library school, to graduate school, and a career in library and archives work. So Abigail Shea, who's a psychology major and a history minor, was working on some of the boxes of campaign materials, doing the final stage of the process before we released them, where she was going through and doing some preservation tasks like removing rusty paper clips and transferring content into new acid-free folders, and a name left off the page in a piece of paper that she was flipping through. She saw the name of her great uncle.
Wow.
So her family is originally from southern Vermont, and her great uncle, Dr. James Shea, served in the Vermont state legislature in the 1980s and 1990s. So she recognized that name right away.
It's a small world.
It is.
It's a small world.
And Vermont's a small state, and certainly there are connections for everyday Vermonters that crop up throughout this collection.
I bet. We've got a couple of minutes left. There's two items I want to show. One of them is this Christmas card. See if I can get it off the table here. What is this Christmas card? Who sent this Christmas card to Senator Leahy?
So this Christmas card was sent to the senator from Fred Tuttle. Some viewers may remember in 1998, Fred Tuttle, who was a dairy farmer from Tunbridge, actually ran for Senate on the Republican ticket.
Right.
And it was a half-serious campaign. After he won the Republican nomination, conceded the race and ended up campaigning for Leahy for the rest of the election cycle.
Yes, you're digging deep, but many of our viewers will remember that. It looks like he wrote a note to the senator, and the note's right there. It's a very nice little note that he wrote. We've got one other item that I want to show that is also connected to Senator Leahy, and why don't you show us that one, Erica?
Sure.
There you go. What are we looking at?
So this one is from the travel series. So we've talked a lot about the campaign series.
Right.
This is from the travel series. So these are the papers that document the senators' domestic and international trips for Senate business, including congressional delegation trips. So this was actually a notebook that the senator's wife, Marcelle Leahy, who has been instrumental at playing a support role in his career, throughout his career. She took this with her on a congressional delegation trip where she accompanied the senator to China in 1978. And she is a registered nurse, and one of the places that she visited was an acupuncture clinic.
Oh.
So you can see her handwritten notes here in a page in this notebook, as well as there's a sketch there that's included that shows people where the acupuncture needles were placed on a certain patient.
Interesting. And a reporter's notebook, when I was coming up, that was very common to have those all around. It was a perfect way to take notes. We're just about out of time. What's next? What's the next series that you're working on now?
So we are currently preparing the senator's correspondence and his scheduling files. So we're working behind the scenes to inventory those materials, to get them in an organizational structure, and then we'll pass them off to the next batch of interns who will be working with us to do some preservation tasks as well.
Can you give us any teasers, anything in there that's really juicy or exciting?
Well, certainly the scheduling files are really interesting because they encompass not just the actual itinerary for the senator's days, and you can imagine it was a packed schedule from early in the morning until late at night with all sorts of different activities, but also they show the evolution of that schedule and all of the planning work that went behind the creation of those schedules. So there was a team of people in the senator's office who were in charge of doing all that planning and coordinating with other staff to get him in the right place at the right time.
Well, thank you very much, Erica. If you'd like to see the first two series that have been released in the Patrick Leahy archive for yourself, you can visit the website on the screen. There's a QR code there. Or, as I said earlier, search UVM Libraries Silver Special Collections, and you will eventually find what you are looking for. That takes care of our show for today. My thanks to the crew behind the scenes here at WCX, who are always well organized. I'm Keith Silva. This is Across the Fence. Thanks for stopping by.